there, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome to Day 3 of the European playoffs as we try to get our top 2 EU teams moving forward towards the SWC qualifiers. Of course, next week is going to be North America, but for right now, it's Gore, it's Chelly, and as I mentioned, we are in Europe, right? So we are still trying to find, I believe, our last 2 teams from each group that are going to be moving over to Group C. So if you want to take a better visual understanding of that, we started with 8 teams, split into 4 best-of-3 round-robin groups. And as such, we've been slowly moving forward, right? Yesterday we saw the Wargs qualify themselves to Group C here in Group B, and we saw the Penguins get eliminated from the competition. So, and not just a little bit, but in the second set of the day, we'll be looking towards that Scarabs-Titans matchup to find out who else from Group B is going to that third group, and they're going to be joining not just the Wargs, but, Trelly, they're also going to be joining, I believe, Hex Mambo, going from Group A. And, of course, the winner of this first set that we're about to watch, who is going to be doing pretty much the same thing. So Hex Mambo is waiting in Group C alongside the Wargs. Yodi Gang yesterday got eliminated. And now, between the Tanuki and the Bolts, one will move on, one will get eliminated. And that's the same way that the Titans and the Scarabs are going to be feeling right after that. Then you can memorize this style of bracket, because that's what Group C is going to be one more time. We're going to have another double elimination, best of 3, with the top 4, top 2 from each group, and those starting in, set 3 today is when they're going to start playing. By not this time tomorrow, this time Monday, I guess, we will have figured out the top 2 European teams and who's going to be going to the qualifier stage. So a lot of fun. But Trelly, first and foremost, it's Tanuki and Bolts that are going to be taking each other on. And we've gotten to see these teams a few times. Pikarino, I know, and Calvìn, I'm going to give credit, because both of them stood out a couple of days ago when they played, and yesterday when they played. But I know OtherTheAnother as well has been a really standout player here for the Olympus Bolts.
Yeah, no doubt. I've also been super impressed with Lode's performance. These ADCs have been absolutely carrying their weight. It's a impactful role, of course, but sometimes you get those hunters that just go through the motions, hit a couple auto attacks and call it a day. But really did seem to me like, StreakUp and Lode were doing the most. They were like just going above and beyond in this hunter role, which is a big deal. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a little bit of contention towards some of these top pick ADCs, just because I think both hunters have a great chance to carry the game if given a little bit of space. But I definitely agree with what you were saying as well. The OtherTheAnother was also popping off, which is what you need in a situation like this when you come in as the bottom seed of the SEC and you're still alive in this tournament, and that's exactly what the Olympus Bolts are. They're sort of punching up, but it's not like they haven't faced tougher opponents before and they've come out on top.
And that's the thing, actually it's fun looking at this matchup just because this isn't the first time these two are matching up, right? Like it's that, we got Yodi Gang versus Hex Mambo to open things up, and then immediately the third set on Friday was watching the Bolts take on the Tanuki, then now getting to watch them unfortunately fall to Hex Mambo, but maybe again when it's Hex Mambo, more expected given where they've been because of seeding. They're the team kind of to beat, really, and to upset, it feels like. But to see these teams get to loop back around through all of that to fight each other again, I think is going to be very interesting. Just because of that double elimination format, but also because, if I remember correctly, the first time, and this shows where I was looking at the bracket, but they go 3 games last time around, right? So knowing that you have some of that pressure and knowing that you have that matchup, like, I'm really curious, similar to like a best of 5 when you get to game 4, right?
Yep.
That's what this is going to be. This is going to be game 4. They've played against each other, and we'll have to figure out how they adapt to it, if they adapt to it, or if it maybe hits a little bit of the reset button. They say, okay, you know what, let's start fresh and try to approach it new. But it does feel like, and admittedly, when was the last time we didn't say this, but it feels like jungle presence is very prevalent. That being said, it also felt like only Mammon is like the go-to #1. Like that's the insta-lock in jungler. Otherwise, you could probably chill on it.
Yeah, I would think so. Chernobog still very highly prioritized as well. Not a jungler per se, but again, I was talking about that duo lane matchup, so I wouldn't be surprised if both of those picks are at least looked at. And of course, the Bolts don't want either of them going the way of the Yomi Tanuki, but a StreakUp special, the Hachiman does get through, and it has been extremely impactful. It hasn't even been the crit build that we've seen more so in the SPL. It's been just full shred, a lot of DPS, and immediately answered back by the X-Ball. So Hunter's at the top of the list here for both of these teams.
And I know we've seen, quite a few mages, like Alpwash banned this time around, Heimdall banned this time around, but like Raijin, Morgan Le Fay. But we've also seen EU favor a lot of like Agni thrown over into the solo lane, and it has been accompanying things like this Kukulkan going towards mid. So a lot of burst. You get that with a Thor, you get it with a Hachi. Maybe Hachi sits off to the side for a little while in this matchup, but like the walls we have seen from Thor matched up with a Kukulkan behind it, it can be pretty deadly, almost as deadly as like somebody stunning somebody into a Thoth on the other side.
I mean, how many times have we seen this exact matchup in the mid lane, though? Just Kuku versus Thoth. It feels like that's been going back and forth. And a pick that I expected the Tanuki to go to maybe a bit earlier was the Poseidon, but it looks like not something they're too concerned with in the solo lane at the moment.
Yeah.
Just going to take some jungle bans in, taking away that Naja, just in case there was any world which the Naja could set up for the Kukulkan. The Bolts just grab that one for themselves, which I think is going to be some great initiation. And instead of the Naja, it's going to be the Ratatoskr. So double assassin. That's going to be a lot of setup for this Kuku ult.
Yeah, and a lot of it, depending on when you get the rotations from your solo lane, I'm going to assume solo Thor, although Variety, a notable EU player, loves playing solo Ratatoskr, so there's also some of that. Cabrakan gets locked in. Everything on the Bolts, at least, is making a little bit more sense as to where it's going to go. But, Sobek, the Thor, the Rat, you've got 3 people. Hell, if you can hit a consistent EI Jutsu streak up, then you've got a lot of setup for this Kukulkan.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty nasty dive. And, of course, looking at the other side, it's going to be just Cabrakan for setup usually, right? Of course, Naja can hit some key ultimates, but you want to get someone else to pull the beats first, right? That's ideal. If you're sashing in and using your ult to get beads, there's a good chance you're dying. So a lot of weight on Cabrakan to set up, whereas the Tanuki, take your pick, man. Anyone can go for the setup.
You could accidentally hit your setup, and it feels like you're going to be able to pull some beads. It's definitely going to be an exciting matchup, a rematch between the Tanuki and the Bolts. The only way to find out what happens is to go down to Game 1 and go over to our casters.
Thank you very much over on the desk, Gore and Trelly. Myself, Supersonic Blur, joined today by Mifflin to help break this set down, actually, over that side on things. And this is a rematch, as the desk has said, but this time it's all on the line. There is no second chances, no whoops, we'll get them next time. This is it. And looking at the comps here, I mean, Yomi Tanukis have got a comp that sets everything up. Bolts, though, I mean, you've got the Raijin again, they've got Thoth and Naja. They're not exactly slouching on potential engages here either.
No, they've got plenty of it. Plenty of beads burn, as the desk had already highlighted, but that's true of both sides. I'm looking at ease of initiation. That's generally what I like to go towards for late game engagements, which one's going to be favored. And I tend to lean towards teams that have got consistent AoE CC. I'm not exactly seeing a whole lot of that on either side here. Maybe you just look at then where's the all-in initiation, and then I might slightly favor the Olympus Bolts just because of how disruptive Raijin is.
It's quite a difficult one to really place, especially early, but so far, no sparks as of yet. I think everything's where we expected it to be. OgiBre, most notable on this one. Taking a look at the assassins again into the solo lane. Mages have been sort of the flavor of the month, but is this kind of like a counter to just the mages or personal pick for the comp?
Man, I couldn't exactly tell you what is bringing the Rat over to solo recently, but it seems like the EU SEC has been leaning towards it a bit more often than just about any other region that I've been watching recently. It's got decent scaling into the mid game. You're able to control some of those rotations towards the mid lane as well, especially once you take over to level 5 and get access to that global. But as far as the direct lane opponent, you're going to struggle.
Yeah, as you can already see there, and the another really trying to put that nail in the coffin. We do like seeing this, where you get one of these junglers will go over to the duo lane, the other one, instead of rotating later, instead opts to try and push out towards the solo side. This time it's TheFrenchEmperor over here, and might just look for a nice wall here, holding their cards close to the chest for now. Olympus Bolts, they just don't take the bait. That's really good patience from them.
It is. TheFrenchEmperor, even if he does lock them down, though, I'm not sure there's enough damage behind him to actually secure a kill. You'd be really relying on that pluck from Calvìn, but no good. Now going to take a good deal of damage. Should just be fine. Dual lane kill pressure generally comes post level 5. Haven't exactly got enough damage on either side just yet.
Not quite, but even then, like, I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, Calvìn dashed in, they've got no dashes to Sobek, we'll lock them down, fight them, but no, they're like, no, we don't know where Thor is. This could still be a bait. And French Emperor sits there and just backs to base in that time. Meanwhile, the OtherTheAnother pulls ahead just a smidge in just getting some extra farm. And like we've seen a lot over the past couple of days here, this is EU. Everything early game is very calculated. They're not going to give anything up unless they absolutely have to.
And there's not exactly a whole lot to fight over just yet. Both junglers have got early pressure, so potential for invades certainly there. Seems to me that both junglers also had eyes for blue buff, though. Wanted to make sure that their soul laner didn't get invaded, so slightly disrupts their jungle pathing, removes the opportunity to start rotating in towards those dual lane invades. I was really thinking we'd see Yomi Tanuki try and get aggressive around that purple, but instead, just about confirming their own farm for now. Everybody waiting on those power spikes, need to get those stacking items available as quickly as possible. And speaking of stacking items, parity between both these teams, both mid and ADC on both sides, going to be moving in towards stacks, which should slow down the pace ever so slightly. I'll be keeping my eyes on maybe some of that jungle pathing going forward. I really want to see OtherTheAnother start burning some of those beads. Put some pressure on a Pikarino. No CC immunity in kit for Kukulkan. So getting those beads off is essentially death sentence. 60 seconds delayed, though. You got to wait for your own ultimate to come back up.
Which might also be part of the point as to why we've not seen. You mentioned level 5 is sort of the big go button for a lot of this. If there's the jungler, usually we see a little bit of hesitancy. It's like, can I get my Jotun's Wrath online first so it feels a little nicer for me using the ult? We do see French Emperor has that now finished. OtherTheAnother still been farming out on the map, not backed yet, importantly. Now will look to do so. First item starting to come online, level 5 for everyone. Is there a lane that really needs to be focused by these junglers if they are going to be using these ults for ganks?
I would think both jungles probably really do want to start putting some of that pressure in mid. Both mages don't have access to CC immunity and kit, so you're very likely to hit pay dirt there. Otherwise, rotations towards soul lane might favor French Emperor a bit more. Duduin, of course, on the Raijin, very survivable with that sustain, but before the defense comes through, and the chain CC potential that Yomi Tanuki have, there might be an opportunity to knock him down.
I like the cold, calm, collected play there. Calvìn eats a little bit of poke. Actually goes into lurking in the waters because French Emperor lands straight on through. It's all in on damage. They go wide with the Serpent of the Nine Winds. Pikarino, though, still grabs first blood. And it's in the mid lane. Not quite on the target they want, but it's a target they'll take.
Great ultimate there from French Emperor. If not for the blink from Naja, or the ultimate, excuse me, would have been a double knockdown there. And very simple for Pikarino to line up his ultimate from that position. Instead, ultimate used defensively by OtherTheAnother, which is twofold an issue. One, you don't have your ultimate anymore to support your allies set up for BeroTheBeast, but also you really can't stick around Dutsher. You're not going to walk back up and try and peel out for him. So Dutsher left to the wolves and Yomi Tanuki strike first and easily around that left side mid camp. French Emperor has been playing very well in this Thor all weekend. I expect more of the same.
And I like just the way that they look at that. It's a little bit of a poke that ends up exploding out into a bigger fight. It doesn't matter if it's not the perfect target. It's a target that they can take as OgiBre takes a good chunk of damage here. Forced into the ultimate. Will Taiko drums be there? No. Duduin actually just holds those drums. You can usually beat those out pretty quickly, but instead just clears out the wave with it. It's ult for ult. Maybe we see that be pressuring out in the solo side, but so far it's all just farming as usual.
Yeah, I don't think Duduin could have got those shots off fast enough to kill OgiBre. I believe it would have taken all the shots, and with him already channeling that red ultimate, likely would have got out of there. So just knocking down the wave, pushing a wave in the tower, making sure some of that farm is lost to the tower. Significant. Duduin already starting to throw his weight around in lane. It'll change up a bit shortly. I thought OgiBre would go towards the healing Acorn instead. Standard Acorn selection for him. But we'll find some of that sustain likely from a Soul Eater in second slot. It's interesting. You're not exactly a full-on tank. You're not going to match the sustain from Raijin either. It will help out on rotations or on resets if you're allowed to just go free hit a wave, or if you want to go proxy waves. OgiBre in a decent position to do that once he finishes Soul Eater, but I really expected maybe a tankier build and then rotations out of lane as quickly as possible. It seems miserable to be a rat up against Raijin.
It does, and it actually leads on to the question I was going to ask, but we'll talk about that in a sec. As French Emperor is in the sky, do they have the range? They've pinged it out. But instead, they'll go towards the OtherTheAnother. Sash in response, both beads. Is the damage there? Not quite enough. The OtherTheAnother barely escapes away with about 100 HP to their name. Again, nice work from FrenchEmperor, just surveying the area for any potential picks. But you mentioned OgiBre and the build path they've gone for. We saw this out of the Camazotz solo, where it was just full damage. The way OgiBre's playing this as well, they've got the Bluestone Pendant. They've gone for the more traditional Acorn of doing more damage. It seems like that, again, is this idea behind the Ratatoskr. It's just full damage. And the concern I always have with that is, are you really able to get away with it as Lode just about gets to safety under tower? Thank the front line of the tower there. And with one front line in Calvìn, is that enough for the Yomi Tanukis?
Yeah, that is my primary concern as well. Seems to me that it's going to be a dive style of play for Yomi Tanuki in the team fight. If FrenchEmperor and OgiBre both go for full damage builds, it's okay, we're going to jump in the back, we're going to kill BeroTheBeast, and one of us is going to die. And that's the entirety of the strategy. It can work. It's very high execution, very narrow margins for error there. So it's possible, and it's something we've seen before in metas of past, but having something with some standard defense, I think, would serve them well. Well, with double global presence, maybe you could make it work. Calvìn being the sole initiator, though, and only having that single target initiation can come back to bite you. We've seen Sobek compositions all weekend really struggle on Siege, and maybe we're counting our chickens before they hatch here. Yomi Tanuki, although ahead, not exactly in a position to start sieging anytime soon, might struggle if they find themselves there. And the Olympus Bolts have got a very strong defensive composition now that we start to look at that. Thoth with the range, Raijin the exact same thing. All the while you've got space control from Dutsher and the constant threat of Windfire Wheels from OtherTheAnother. It's a very strong defensive draft here. So I can see Yomi Tanuki even struggling when they decide to start pulling some of these objectives.
That could be fairly soon, as we're reaching about the 10-minute mark. This is usually the moment when Gold Fury start being flooded with, but items online-wise, FrenchEmperor is still looking for more CDR with that hi-rez Lament. On the other side, OtherTheAnother going towards that more CDR, but this time going for the, it's not Fail Not, it's the Arendite. That's the one for the Assassin tree there. So a lot more damage potential there. There's BeroTheBeast and Pikarino. I mean, Pikarino was involved in First Blood mainly because of proximity to the fight happening. Bero's still fairly quiet at this point, just trying to farm things up. They'll dash on in aggressively towards the FrenchEmperor. And a little bit of poke goes their way.
Yeah, I mean, BeroTheBeast clearly playing with confidence. If you've got eyes on the Thor himself, you don't exactly need to play all that cautious. It's that threat of global that makes Thor so valuable. So when you got eyes on him, might as well try and put some damage out. StreakUp, dash in onto Lode, who has to play in tower here. No beads. Calvìn has not left this lane just about at all this game. Just trying to keep his pressure up on the Xbalanque. Yeah. It's allowed them to control those shield buffs, but makes you a little bit predictable, and now a rotation headed their way.
Prediction makes you an easy target, and there is already the first rotation from OtherTheAnother, but FrenchEmperor is up. They will land on through. It's a big chunk of damage, but Bero's here as well. Can they bear fruit, though, is the question. The answer is no. Final Judgment hits Pikarino, keeps them away from the fight. Lode now put out of position. Good wall again comes through from the FrenchEmperor. Olympus Bolts, they have to lick their wounds and retreat here.
Man, FrenchEmperor played that just perfect. Top to bottom, the entire engagement was just perfect from him. Ultimate placement, double tap hammer into wall delayed, puts out so much pressure and allows for exactly this. Gold Fury pull. Now I'm not seeing any Olympus Bolts stepping up anytime soon. Yomi Tanuki stroked for First Blood earlier, and now grab first objective as well as we crest that 11-minute mark. All the while, OgiBre takes a small exchange on the right-hand side, one that I think we become very, very used to seeing, which is him just ulting away from Duduin. That said, even with all the pressure Duduin's had in the PvP, hasn't quite been able to stop OgiBre from farming up. Maintains level parity. OgiBre was actually first to 13, hasn't exactly fallen too far behind in build, still stacking the Soul Eater, and it will be a full damage build, by the way, with hi-rez in that third slot. I'm not exactly so concerned with the laning phase anymore for OgiBre. I thought Duduin would be able to get a little bit more done. Knocks down the tower, but I don't think OgiBre really cares.
I don't think so either. I mean, you can see they were looking to just try and make sure their farm was secured or checking exactly when it was going down as OtherTheAnother gets an invade. That was such a beautiful work for going towards that Gold Fury. Sure, you think about it, it makes perfect sense, but the recognition to do it and now try it again over the beacon. Dutsher put down to about half. Bero threatens Final Judgment, but freehanding that here, not exactly something you want to provide the enemies the opportunity to know, hey, that's down for free. I'll go ahead and grab Stygian Beacon. With all that said, the Gold Fury in the lead, though, it's still barely 700 gold lead here.
Yeah, Yomi Tanuki have not been able to solidify the gold, but experience in a much better position. Just about everybody about a half level to a level up on their opposition. And so that'll start leading to advantages around the Pyromancer spawn, I believe. Might be the next POI where we see Yomi Tanuki take one of these engagements. One bit of interesting information gathered by Yomi Tanuki there is that they no longer have the opportunity to just jump on Dutsher, who has now finished stacking Gauntlet of Thieves and Sovereignty. The strategy for Yomi Tanuki in the last 3 team fights is just jump on the Cabrakan. He's going to be in the front line. It'll be easy to lock him down, and they've been right to do so. But now Dutsher, just survivable enough that all you're doing is sinking resources into a target that's going to take far too much commitment to actually knock down. With this Bolts, seem to realize that Yomi Tanuki will likely be fishing for that Pyromancer, start putting some pressure on that right-hand side, but they step too far up. Dutsher's fine. We know that. But if anyone else sticks around and try and help him out, might be in a little bit of trouble.
You can see there, I love this second item Sovereignty here. You mentioned it's a double dive from OgiBre and French Emperor. You've already got Thebes. Now you're coupling, I believe it's another 20 or so protections coming through from Sovereignty. Everyone is so tanky here. 15 protections, 25 HP 5, excuse me. We have 25 physical protections just for being around, not to mention Shadow Zone, making you get mitigation as well. Anyone that Dutsher stands beside, including themselves, is so tanky here to this double dive comp. But it does mean that Dutsher has to stay close in the back if that dive happens. We see another attempt here, a bit of a skirmish around this buff. This time, though, not much from the Olympus Bolts. Don't want to end up in a worse situation like last time.
No, the Bolts are going for a much more subdued style of play as opposed to what we had seen from them up against Hex Mambo, where it felt like anytime they started to fall behind, it was an overreaction on map. We got to make something happen. This time it's, well, our late game team fight looks pretty good. Yomi Tanuki are likely going to struggle a bit in actually doing anything big like Pyromancer or Fire Giant in our face. So Olympus Bolts content to take the pace a bit slower, just allowing BeroTheBeast to start stacking up some of his power, waiting for Lode to get some of his items online. Not exactly in any position where you need to feel like you have to do something. That's on Yomi Tanuki now. They've got a slight lead. If they want to expedite the pace of game, it's going to be up to them.
Well, Olympus Bolts looking over to the solo side, potentially trying to expedite something. Beautiful turnaround there from the OtherTheAnother. It was frame perfect, I'd argue. But French Emperor is there to answer back. The 2v1 turns to a 2v2. OgiBre may end up falling if Duduin can find the shots. They do so. But can you do it again and again? Pikarino is here as well. We do have some support from the rest of the Olympus Bolts. Out comes the Darkest of Night as Duduin goes in aggressively onto Pikarino. There's both Aegis and Beads now still available. Aegis is gone, and BeroTheBeast answers that one. Olympus Bolts find themselves 2 picks over on the right.
Great play there by Duduin. Just dodges out all of Pikarino's damage, keeps them nearby, and makes sure the Olympus Bolts have an easy target to chase out. Now a 2 dead for Yomi Tanuki. It's the Pyromancer to the Chaos side. Can anyone stop him? It's just Calvìn nearby for now.
Well, it's only Calvìn. There is Thor coming on forward. They're looking to just try and pressure them away. Lurking in the waters, stopped off by their own Thor wall. So no potential secure there. Will the hammer come through? It will! That is absolutely gross.
Yeah, that's not allowed. And it's a tough situation. BeroTheBeast had just previously used his ultimate to help secure the kill up against Pikarino, and so not exactly great secure available to the Olympus Bolts, and no vision around where exactly Thor was means easy for him to just walk up throughout that double hammer. So tough stuff. Out confirmed. That's going to happen every now and then. Fortunately, it is just the Pyromancer, so the golden experience difference not massive. But putting the Runic Bomb in the pocket of Calvìn with the Tier 1 tower still standing in mid means easy places for Yomi Tanuki to go ahead and head. Maybe leverage some of that pressure, or even just use it to confirm a Fury.
They might do so, but instead they'll use Serpent of the Nine Winds. And that was right under Olympus Bolt's eyes there. They had vision on that the entire time, but the ward vision from Yomi Tanuki's completely encompassing that part of the map. They knew no one was around, and if there was, they were happy to take that fight.
Yeah, would have spotted any rotation path in towards the Gold Fury. Would have given over advantage on initiation as well. French Emperor had the opportunity to go up into the air, if need be, and even further pressure out the Olympus Bolts. So a calculated decision from Yomi Tanuki, even if Calvin wasn't close by. Would have been a 4v5, but one I'm sure they were happy to take. Olympus Bolts got to taste the driver's seat, got to be there for just a moment, until it was immediately stripped away by Yomi Tanuki on objective steal into an immediate objective pull. And now, no POIs available on map, barring towers, means we're probably just spinning our wheels for the next few minutes. Maybe Yomi Tanuki can try and look for some picks, maybe catch out OtherTheAnother in the next 20 seconds, could open the door potentially to an early Fire Giant. You've got decent ability to burn it and good ability to secure if Pikarino gets that ultimate back up, but I'm thinking OtherTheAnother, realizing he's the only one at any risk right now, going to play a bit further back on map. Not a whole lot to risk yourselves over now. It's just about farming.
And farming is exactly what's happening, but the OtherTheAnother gets pulled into an awkward spot. They're forced to ult defensively again. Calvin has done such great work here, just controlling multiple members from the Bolts with single target CC, as you mentioned earlier. FrenchEmperor comes on forward.
Ooh, nice
Calvin
try.
blinks again, going for an aggressive pick on Bero. OgiBre is lurking in the wings. It's a bit of a siege here attempted towards that mid tower 1. But at the same time, like you mentioned, the siege potential from Olympus Bolts, or anti-siege as it were, they've got such good range, such good clear from multiple members. There's going to be a problem, but mounted archery in aggressively. OgiBre blinks in on the back. Their target is Bero, but look how far back Bero is able to get. As OgiBre dives under tower, Dutsher cleans that one up, punishing this transgression. Now blinking forward themselves. They've locked down Pikarino, and they'll find themselves 2 picks. Yomi Tanuki started that fight, but Olympus Bolts are ending it cleanly here. FrenchEmperor being just pelted in the back by Lode. Dutsher using the full extent of their health bar. They paid for the whole thing. They'll use the whole thing. StreakUp tries to keep the fight going, but there's just a blink fire wheels. OtherTheAnother is still here. You can't be that aggressive.
Yomi Tanuki, they stick around far, far too long. If you break down how the fight starts, it's Yomi Tanuki burning through 3 sets of beads, essentially costing them only their ultimates, and they maintain full HP bars, and they get a bit over-aggressive. OgiBre playing as if he had built tank. He hasn't, by the way. Goes into that tower alone, burns through an Aegis, loses his own life trying to ult out. If you want to play that style of Rat, you got to get a little bit more of a defensive stat line. Unfortunately for OgiBre, just too much damage returned to him, and from there, the Olympus Bolts surge forward and absolutely decimate that team fight. OtherTheAnother allowed to reset, and because the engagement had gone so long, Yomi Tanuki tries for 40 seconds just to chase out that engagement. OtherTheAnother, who had been forced to use his ultimate defensively at the start of the fight, gets it back up, turns things around. It just feels like lack of respect there from Yomi Tanuki, just trying to walk down the Olympus Bolts. That engagement had gone just so long, you got to realize things are starting to go south.
Indeed, and then to constantly keep trying to be re-aggressive in the situation is almost a sunken cost fallacy. Like, we started a fight, we know we were up, we can definitely win the fight, then they lose 1, then they lose 2, and it just keeps compounding on it, and now that gold lead completely nullified now. Yomi Tanuki's on complete even parity, and now what was an XP lead that we talked about earlier, which gave Yomi Tanuki's that feeling of confidence, is completely in favor of Olympus Bolts.
Olympus Bolts in a decent position now, and you can see the confidence starting to flow through the Chaos side. Fire Giant pulled out. This is risky. They should look for the fight first.
They should. They know Ogi's been forced back to base and doesn't have ult. They've only got FrenchEmperor to worry about, and they go right into the back line. They found Bero caught on the wall. Not a good look for the Olympus Bolts as Duduin finds FrenchEmperor. They're serving the 9 wind guns as well. This Fire Giant's getting low, but the fight is what's being focused out right now. They'll leash the Fire Giant, so OgiBre returns, so it's a 1-for-1 trade out, but Olympus Bolts' health bars do not look happy about it. OgiBre blinks in, though, and this is a fight they can try and keep going. Instead, it's just the beads until Dutsher jumps in.
OgiBre, stuck in the cage, has set himself up for another free pick. Just gets over-aggressive once more.
And now the fight continues on. Yomi Tanuki's went for Pyromancer. Now they'll go back in for the fight. StreakUp gets the double kill and the aggressive play. The OtherTheAnother tried to go for the blink sash, but beats it out. And Pikarino spits in the face of that one. It's all gone wrong for the Olympus Bolts. I love the attempt to start a fight on their terms. Unfortunately, their mouths were writing checks. They could not cash in.
Yeah, the Olympus Bolts overcommit. They make the same mistake Yomi Tanuki do. They grab their free picks, could have just backed themselves out afterward. Instead, stick around for the fight, try and peel out for Lode. once Lode's caught by Tornado, you kind of have to accept it. He's dead. There's nothing we can do for him. I can't peel the Tornado off of you. Need to walk out after that. And instead, the Olympus Bolts walk in like lemmings. And Yomi Tanuki, fortunately, able to knock him down. Pikarino putting out a whole lot of damage. StreakUp doing the exact same. And now it's advantage over to Yomi Tanuki around the Fire Giant pit. 4 strong. And they will pull it. Olympus Bolts, I'm not even sure they're going to have time to get here.
I mean, they're not. Look at where Bero is. Bero is being zoned out by OgiBre. Everyone else is giving this up. I mean, we've got members doing speed camps in the back. Yomi Tanuki grabbed themselves their first Fire Giant here. And after a small misstep, they've comfortably retained or regained their lead. Now with the Fire Giant as well, they can start looking for slightly better sieges than the one they had in mid.
And knock down some of those towers. They're not going to be able to defend that Fury, but clearing out every structure on map, I think, just valuable enough. You don't necessarily need to get a Phoenix with the first Fire Giant. So 3 tier 2s still standing, 1 more tier 1 in mid. Plenty of gold to line their coffers. Would help out a good deal. We'll see, though. It's a slow play. Even just Duduin showing up, enough to stop the 3-stack from Yomi Tanuki from attempting the tier 2. Classic European play. They're not going to go for anything unless it's absolutely guaranteed. So, back themselves up, regroup, probably see them stack up on that tier 1 mid tower. But even with Fire Giant on all 5, I'd like to see the Olympus Bolts try and set up some line of defense. Even on tier 1, I think would be alright. Risky. I would say soft defense there. Don't exactly commit your lives, but have BeroTheBeast throw out some poke. Have them clear those waves. Make it a little bit more difficult for Yomi Tanuki to start working through these structures. The Olympus Bolts don't necessarily even need to kill Tanuki. It's just about buying time and slowing them down. If any of their structures survive through this Fire Giant, I'd argue they've done enough.
Oh no. This might be a problem. Great dash from Lode. Immunes the CC from Calvìn. Like you said, it's a soft defense here. Mainly just trying to clear out the wave. Like you said, buy time. The longer it takes Yomi Tanuki to take down these structures. I mean, when they get in, it's 255 per basic attack from StreakUp. So it's not exactly like they're going to last long. They just need that Fire Giant to last long enough. Or wear off sooner rather than later to the Olympus Bolts. Titans are starting to make their way down, and it is in the mid lane here. With both of those semi-globals off in the wings. If Olympus Bolts step up for just too long, they might find themselves in trouble.
Playing well in that tier 2 is going to be the struggle now. You want to deal with the Titan before it gets into the Phoenix. It's taking some damage down to half, but you can't take too much in return.
It's on a knife's edge right now. Titan does go down, but it brute forced down that mid tier 2 tower. This is all just extending that gold lead. It's up to about 5,000 now. Fire Giant still on for another 2-ish or minute and a bit. Still remaining on that one. So Yomi Tanuki's could look for more. If not, though, then it's just a backup, buy up, and set up for a next Fire Giant here. Olympus Bolts, though, what is their game plan here? They can't just let the game fall apart in front of them.
No, I'd like to see the Olympus Bolts try once more to take a fight in neutral territory. It didn't seem to me that Yomi Tanuki are winning so handily on these engagements that the Olympus Bolts need to give up the fire. It's come down to errors of decision-making on both sides that has cost the majority of these engagements. Yomi Tanuki either overcommitting or the Olympus Bolts doing the exact same thing. But either way, the fights have been going back and forth pretty consistently. That said, Yomi Tanuki in a much better position now, pushing their gold lead closer to that 6,000 mark than otherwise. So, will be a significant advantage, but one that I think they can overcome.
Ooh, big beads burn. And again, out with the ultimate from the OtherTheAnother for repositioning. Bero caught in such a bad spot. That wall is perfect to lock any kind of a retreat there. Beads Aegis used. Bero now just trying to survive as long as they can, but they can't weather that much of a storm. Pikarino cleans up the mid laner, and with that, the doors are wide open to look further. OgiBre pushed out mid lane, and that will be the mid Phoenix going down. Blink through from Dutsher. They only find StreakUp, and everyone else is being manhandled here. Duduin taken down by FrenchEmperor. And meanwhile, over on the back, Lode gets clipped by a ridiculous amount of damage. Brace is completely broken. Yomi Tanuki's. They weren't looking for it, but they'll take something like that.
Yeah, the Olympus Bolts lose the thread there on rotation. Yomi Tanuki maneuvering the map, baits the Olympus Bolts into the jungle. They step a little bit too far forward for my liking. Go ahead, let Pyromancers go down. You don't need to group up for things like that. Wait for the Fire Giant itself if you're going to try and defend, and instead, the Olympus Bolts piecemeal taken apart. BeroTheBeast locked down by a perfect wall from FrenchEmperor. Burns through both relics and his life. OgiBre able to rotate through and confirm that kill for his team. And now it's the Olympus Bolts. Just previously, I'd said would like to see them defend the Fire Giant. This gold lead has now started to reach a point where I think you probably don't want to. I've seen enough of how much damage FrenchEmperor is putting out in these engagements. BeroTheBeast not having either of his relics. Go ahead. Just let Yomi Tanuki take the fire and then all in on base defense, I think, for the Bolts.
Yeah, I think for me the big one is they've got to find this home for Ne. I've not seen it do much the entire game. Like, the game plan is there. It's like, oh, it can be aggressive, it can burn beads, it's somewhat tanky, so it can play a bit more aggressively with that use, think like a Circuit, but we're just not seeing it do anything this game. How many ults have we seen used defensively? I'd say at least 70% of them.
Yeah, certainly the majority. As Calvìn goes for the pluck, misses it, drop down to a quarter. Thought maybe we'd see Dutsher just go ahead and throw out that ultimate, but even had he done it, Phantom Shell still available to Calvìn. Would have been able to get out of that situation. But burning through the Phantom Shell before the fight, always going to be valuable. Now, Calvìn, having not had that threat thrust upon him, will be able to maintain the Phantom Shell and use it to peel out for maybe Pikarino or OgiBre or StreakUp in some of these engagements, as the Fire Giant is starting to be looked at by Yomi Tanuki. Olympus Bolts show presence. Seems to me unwilling to let this Fire Giant go down without a fight. Could be a bit of a double-edged sword, though. Yomi Tanuki so heavily favored that delaying them might just turn this Fire Giant into an EFG. We're about a minute out from that.
Could do so, so instead they'll go ahead and start this one up. Olympus Bolts are here. Calvìn looking towards the front line. OtherTheAnother goes around the back, but Yomi Tanuki have already secured it. FrenchEmperor goes into the back with OgiBre. They take down that mid lane damage, and now the rest of the Olympus Bolts are just scattering away. OgiBre still actually had the ult, and so can land down in on OtherTheAnother. Two members go down, Fire Giant in tow. Yomi Tanuki's, I don't think they're looking for the Phoenix. They're aiming for the Titan here.
Could be. Olympus Bolts used a lot of their resources there. Dutsher still has ultimate, but Phantom Shell similarly still up for Yomi Tanuki. The Olympus Bolts won't even have their strongest bits of defense, not for 30 seconds. This is surprising. I really thought we'd see Yomi Tanuki get a bit more aggressive. I mean, there was so much time in the 5v3. Only one tower still standing to make that Titan any bit stronger, but it's Europe. Gotta remember when we're in Europe, they're going to get everything on the map. Grab the Pyromancer, put that Runic Bomb in pocket. Wouldn't be surprised to see him grab that Gold Fury, head back to base, spend up that gold. I don't know, pick up an extra ward, then go push down the left-hand side. I wouldn't have. Me personally, Panic End every single day of the week. I'm in there 100%. You're telling me BeroTheBeast and OtherTheAnother are both dead? I'm in there 100%. But Yomi Tanuki, clear heads prevail. We'll be grouping up on that left-hand side. They'll have to work through that base defense once more. Olympus Bolts weren't allowed to leverage it at all in the previous engagement. Now, if they're 5 stacked on the one remaining Phoenix, mid-Phoenix, not too far from respawning, it'd be a little bit more difficult for Yomi Tanuki to start their siege. We haven't seen it just yet. The one time we saw Yomi Tanuki 5v5 on an enemy structure was the tier 2 in mid, and the Olympus Bolts delayed them pretty significantly. It took the unleashing of the Titans to tip the scales in their favor. It's generally been picks in the jungle that have cost the Olympus Bolts their ability to defend. So, 30 minutes in, I'm thinking they probably have learned their lesson.
Should have done so. We are going to see the last tier 2 tower go down. That pesky remaining structure, which giving that Titan just that extra bit of HP. Mid-Phoenix has respawned, and there are no fire waves pushing up that one. OgiBre, though, is still looking to get somewhat aggressive towards that. See where they end up banking over to. Keep in mind that ult. They can transition anywhere they want to at any given moment. Instead, they might just look for a potential pick, put some pressure out. It's a 3-2 split here from Yomi Tanuki's. And Olympus Bolts can hold this. They're holding it fairly well so far. Finally, though, we do see Calvìn go in. They'll lead a lot of CC. That's about it.
Scorching Blink used by Dutsher there as well, I think. Assuming the fight was coming, tries to separate it, but no engagement to separate. It means he's just lost his mobility. OtherTheAnother takes some poke over wall as Calvìn walks in once more. Slowly working on this mid-Phoenix. It's going to be a struggle. Has to back up, resustain. Has Sickening Strike to heal up, and Fire Giant will do some of that work for him. But this mid-Phoenix, it's going to regenerate its HP so long as it hasn't been hit. All you need to do is get Pikarino in range. Polynomicon is going to do the majority of the work here. Getting Pikarino into range, though, may be easier said than done.
Looks like it right now as Bero constantly hovering over that ult, recognizing that the Yomi Tanuki's don't want to step forward at all. It's all been just poke out wherever they can. As now it's a 2-man bit of damage going through. This Serpent of the Nine Wind will hit Dutsher, but OgiBre is taken down by Bero, who is left unfeathered in this situation. StreakUp now far forward. Calvìn has to get in front of them here. It's a big bit of damage. It's torn back in on Calvìn. No one else has got any follow-up here. And your Olympus Bolts hold here. Yomi Tanuki have fumbled this siege.
I'm thinking if OgiBre was just tank rat, this game ends like 10 minutes ago. So often the engagement starts with OgiBre walking to the back line and saying, I got you, beads. Oh, they got me. Oops. Unfortunate. You need to be able to survive those initiations if you're going to be the initiator. Otherwise, hang back and just let Calvìn do everything. But I understand. You want to get involved. You want to start burning through those relics. You need to get something moving. The mid-Phoenix regenerating HP probably puts a little bit of pressure on you to act a little bit faster as well, but haven't exactly itemized for the style of play that I think OgiBre is trying to leverage.
Pikarino caught in an awkward spot. There's the beads burn, and that's all they need for now. A potential death sentence for them. There is still a minute, or 2 minutes, I should say, 2 minutes 10 on those beads down, and again, that just kind of hampers Yomi Tanuki going, I don't want to go forward. You said Pikarino. If Pikarino gets in with Polynomicon, that's 500 damage to a tower. It's like half a runic bomb, which is insane now to say it out loud. But yeah, now temporal beads come online. A bit late on that one, but that's now another 2 minutes where, well, I guess we're going to look at Fire Giant sieges. Pikarino's now a potential target. There's not much that Yomi Tanuki can get on the map that's left. There's Pyromancer, but that's it. And Olympus Bolts know it.
EFG back and available. Olympus Bolts on the scene for defense. Fire Giant pulled and burning quickly. The Olympus Bolts have got a lot of steal potential here. You can't just leave it to a coin toss.
They cannot and they won't. Instead, they will back off and try and take the fight. StreakUp's health bar is gone and Duduin clips them with the Taiko drums. That'll hamper a lot of what Yomi Tanuki's have been doing here. Duduin gets a double kill. Calvìn is gone. French Emperor around the back, trying to disengage. So is OgiBre. It's only Pikarino, really, who can now go for a steal here. But the Olympus Bolts are keeping eyes on everyone. This Fire Giant is not falling as fast as when the Yomi Tanukis were doing this. And bear in mind, Olympus Bolts really need to keep this game going. Instead, though, it's OtherTheAnother finally finding a home with the ultimate. Who they take up, it's French Emperor. But they're too low. Serpent of the Nine Winds does not find a home. But French Emperor still takes down in the 2v1. What? He wins the 2v1, comes away with a double kill, and now BeroTheBeast is low? I'm sorry, what did I just miss?
Yeah, I mean, the Olympus Bolts critically fumble target selection there. Or maybe it's Yomi Tanuki who just go crazy. It can isolate all these members on their own. French Emperor not done, by the way, wants Dutsher and will secure his kill and deicide Olympus Bolts. It looked so good for so long. Stop the Fire Giant, pull, pick your 2 for free. Fall back to the Fire Giant, even get OtherTheAnother to find the ultimate, but it's not enough. Of course they can end. There's 30 seconds till anyone spawns.
Yeah,
wait, no, hold on, you're right, it's Europe. They might back up.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 Phoenixes still standing. We saw it happen when there was 1 structure remaining, but this time, they've got minions in tow. A lot of damage coming through. There's Serpent of the Nine Wind, deletes a quarter of the health bar. And it took a while, but Yomi Tanukis, in one fight around Fire Giant, are able to hold long enough to get themselves the win.
Shouts French Emperor, you deserve a raise for your performance in this one, man. I mean, the gank's early game, facilitating that early to mid-game bridge, that late-game team fight, single-handedly winning your team the game in a, 30% HP 2v1 that further turns into a 3v1 later on as he finishes off Dutsher. I guess the adaptation going into game 2 is deal with French Emperor.
And we'll have to see how they do that. Do you ban away the Thor? Do you maybe look for another pick for OtherTheAnother? We'll have to find out in game 2. But before then, we got to throw it to a break.
You pull me closer, but don't waste your time. Don't have any time for all your empty lies. I used to think that you were only mine, but I was blinded by a shallow light. I'll call your friends, I'll let them know that I'm so done with the tragic boys. Tonight I'll get into my zone. I'll dance until the tears are gone. No time for bad love, bad love, bad love. I'm dancing all these tears away. No time for bad love, bad love, bad love. I'm dancing all these fears away. Don't need you. Leaving you just made me realize all the things I used to sacrifice just to please you, just to call you mine. But look at me now, I have the time of my life. I'll call your friends, I'll let them know that I'm so done with the tragic boys. Tonight I'll get into my zone. I'll dance until the tears are gone. No time for bad love, bad love, bad love. I'm dancing all these tears away. No time for bad love, bad love, bad love. I'm dancing all these fears away. Don't need you. Don't need you. Don't need you. Dancing all these tears away. 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 No time for bad love, bad love, bad love. I'm dancing all these tears away. No time for bad love, bad love, bad love. I'm dancing all these fears away. Don't need you. Bad love, bad love, bad love. No time for bad love, bad love, bad love.
That's right. It's just a little over a month away, which freaks me out a little bit when I say it like that. January 12th through 14th, the SMITE World Championship live from Arlington, Texas. Of course, hopefully you're going to be there when tickets went on sale ages ago. But if you're not, you can always watch live on Twitch or on YouTube. But if you want to feel like you're there, let's say you're at home and you want the atmosphere, you want to support whether your favorite teams, us just in general, you just want to root for SMITE, or on top of that, maybe you're going to be there and you just want to be able to represent your favorite teams, whether it's some very specific new t-shirts that came out with their skins on it, the represent their gods in the game, things like that. Well, good news. You can go to shop.hi-rezstudios.com/SPL, or sorry, /SWC. SPL will just get you the normal stuff. SWC, that'll get you the good. And that's where the jerseys, hoodies, bags, hats, t-shirts, etc., all of which can be found. Rep the SMITE World Championship, whether you're going to be there at home. And of course, and I mention this every time, and I feel like at this point, Trelly, I'm trying to will it into existence because I've never actually gotten a confirmation on it. But we've done, since we had to do Worlds at home,
Right.
introduce like, how are you watching at home, send us pictures, tweet us pictures, and things like that. I'm going to assume we're doing it again because we did it last year. And if we are, then you can take a picture in your brand new merch. Show us when you're watching in just over a month. You could tweet it at us before then, but you could definitely do it during Worlds. And again, it's just a little over a month away, so you want to make sure that you get that merchandise. Trelly, the Tanuki, though, are one step closer in their dream of getting to the World Championship. But they face adversity in this one, and sometimes it is self-imposed adversity.
I would say so. I mean, this was a game where the Tanuki had an almost undroppable gold lead. Like, it was insane. They had such a lead. They dropped it for a bit. The Bolts have a good fight. You think, okay, it's over. The Bolts can't really end. It was just so back and forth, and I think it didn't need to be. For me, it seemed like the Tanuki had this one in the bag and could have ended at like 28 minutes, give or take. They decided against it. They decided to play a bit smart, and because they delayed the game a bit longer, that's where it became a little bit back and forth, right? And that's the beauty of a game like this, the back and forth nature. There was throws, there was pickups, there was just collapses on good plays, bad plays, etc. But hey, at the end of the day, the Tanuki did get their win, and so I guess playing safe did end up paying off, right? They got the 1-0 lead. And in a matchup like this, with what you said, SWC is on their minds. You got to be looking towards getting the momentum on your side, and getting game number 1 is exactly what you need to do.
And they do a great job kicking things off. Like you said, it takes a little while. In fact, when you look up at the kill count for a lot of these highlights, like they were down in kills the majority of the game, tied at best. But then look at their gold, right? They're 12,000 up in a lot of these moments, and that's why you can get taken up by a Naja and come back down, not missing a majority of your health bar. And so, like you mentioned, takes them a little while, maybe even a little longer than necessary. But the big desired result is the same, which is the win at the end of the day. And going into game number 2, they have to kind of repeat that performance, right? Rectify some of those slip-ups, make it a little cleaner. Yeah, but if you're 6-1-4 for FrenchEmperor, you're probably not feeling too bad about it, things like that. So it's going to be up to the Bolts instead to maybe adapt how they play and how they're going to tackle the Tanuki. Last time they go 3, and I think these two just showed us in that game that it has the propensity to be back and forth already. So there's definitely something to be said, especially with the Bolts swapping sides to first pick.
Yeah, I would say getting FrenchEmperor off the Thor could be a good start. It wasn't as if it had, that incredible impact early on. It still did, of course, but it really was the late game that was an issue, right? The Thor 100-0 potential seemed like a lot to handle there for the Olympus Bolts, so maybe that's a place to start. Still, I think Kuku and Thoth are going to be pretty highly contested. Those are just picks that are great in the current meta, so we'll have to see if the Bolts have a change-up. Remember, they banned away the Chernobog last time around, which is a big deal. They banned away the Mammon, which now they don't really have to, unless they really just don't want either of those picks. So we can leave that one over to Tanuki and then see if they change up their strategy.
And they do, as it turns out, change up their strategy pretty heavily immediately. So they do ban the Mammon, so that shows that they don't want it, whether they can play it or not. They just didn't want to deal with it because they want the Chernobog. But they ban out Thor and Ratatoskr immediately, and so they recognize, they were like, you know what, semi-global presence, that's too much to handle. We don't want to deal with that. Athena, Apwash, Heimdall banned on the other side. We get the Cherno, and then we get a Raijin Kukulkan answer. So you're getting some pretty powerful mages for the Tanuki.
Yep, now the Bolts have their choice of the Thoth, which I would assume they'd grab here, because if not, it gets banned away, and maybe they just don't want to go back towards that mid pick. But either way, the Chernobog is the big deal as far as I'm concerned. Yemoja, that's a big deal as well, but I'm more so concerned about how rough the sieges were, or how questionable the Fire Giant sieges were. Chernobog can make those very simple, right? He heads over to left lane, says, I'm going to bring someone all the way to this side of the map, and then once they show up, I'm ulting over. That makes Fire Giant a lot easier for the Olympus Bolts, and they've got some pretty good confirmation with Poseidon there.
I've also, that's the one that caught me out. Last couple of days, like Poseidon, hell, go to playoffs. Poseidon suddenly is like a top pick,
Yep.
and it's in solo lane. He does really well over there. And then last game, even though we're kind of anticipating it, expecting it, waiting for, he just didn't show up at all. So now that he's locked in, I'm expecting this game to be a little different. You had mentioned it, but Naja, Thoth gets banned, so they do target that one out, forces the Bolts to go towards the Scylla, Daji, Nemesis. So something new for the Tanuki in the jungle. And maybe something new, well,
the jungle's back, baby.
It's not new in the jungle. That Chaac has one game played, one win, and it was the jungle.
Yeah, the jungle is back. You got the Scylla for that confirmation. We were talking about, Kuku as some great burst objective for these objectives, but the Scylla is also going to provide that. But the Ares seems like it's going to be a little bit rough to deal with. Remember, Chaac, one of the greatest things about him is how slippery he can be. Throw the axe, run away, torrent, teleport back. A lot of that gets shut down with the chains, and of course, Poseidon, no CC immunity there. You're going to need to watch out for those beads timers.
Especially, you're dealing with the Ares part of the time. Awilix the other part of the time,
Yep.
right? And Poseidon doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of getaway from an Awilix. Like the Whirlpool can help a little bit, I guess, in terms of rooting and things like that. But it could be a very dangerous game. But the faith is in the jungle right now, and we'll have to figure out whether or not it's going to work for him, because it's do or die for the Bolts, and it's time to jump down to the casters and find out how it's going to go.
French Emperor's Thor was so impactful, it was banned first. But what they give up in response, Mifflin, I mean, we just saw how impactful Raijin can be on a side that was losing. Now they give it over to OgiBre. They also pick themselves up the Ares. They still get the Kukulkan. They get the Hachiman back. Looking over at what we saw from the Bolts, I mean, they got Chernobog. They've got a warrior. I know you like those. Maybe it's going solo. Who am I kidding? It's Chaac jungle.
Yeah, I mean, they got Chernobog Yemoja, and I think for the most part, if this were an SPL match or even a more standard pace game one had happened, I'd say GG. You know, Yemoja, Chernobog on their own. That's enough to do it. Poseidon's been rising in the win column as well. And then the Chaac Scylla happens, and I lose a little bit of faith in the Olympus Bolts composition. I mean, there is decent standardized lockdown to make I'm a Monster a good tool in team fight. Kraken, of course, great for secure.
Oh
Dutsher.
my goodness.
No way. No, he's fine. He's fine.
No. He is fine, but level 2 hits so early. Calvìn and StreakUp just pressure out so aggressively. There's kind of everything you expect from an Ares. If you're not face pressing people to smash them with chains immediately the second you get those abilities up, what are you doing? And hello? OtherTheAnother, you need that health bar. That's important. Don't lose all of it.
I mean, there's just fighting everywhere on the map now. StreakUp, dash forward, slow connects, but so much minion wave there, and Calvìn corralling the enemy minion wave means that he'll be able to walk out of that one just fine. I'm trying to figure out exactly where the Olympus Bolts are going to put their pressure. Chaac jungle has been around for a very long time. It's been a high-pressure jungle, but generally level 5 slanted. And then I look at Awilix on the other side, I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, at level 5, she's probably just a little bit stronger. At level 3, she's certainly stronger. At the absolute latest point of the game, she's got so much more viability for a pick-based type of fight. Maybe a little bit less impactful in a true 5-on-5 engagement because of the AoE nature of Chaac's ultimate. So where do I want this Chaac? Where do I want him playing? And I'm thinking I want him playing wherever FrenchEmperor isn't. Even in the direct 1v1, FrenchEmperor with Feather Step can completely immune a Chaac ultimate, and it's very easy to time that out. So I'd be surprised to see any of that connect. Chaac jungle's always been hit or miss, and I'd argue 80% of the time throughout history has been miss. And even looking elsewhere, if he's taking fights where FrenchEmperor isn't, who is he jumping on consistently? StreakUp, maybe? Catch him before he channels the ultimate? No. He could channel the ultimate reaction. Get the CC immunity for the silence. Okay, catch Pikarino. All right, I talked myself into it.
There we go. It's Pikarino again who needs to be the focus, and we kind of saw that idea last game with, well, it was the Naja, which was also banned away this game, as with the Thoth. But Pikarino needing to be the target here. I mean, FrenchEmperor can happily sit there as well. Bero can't dash away. Instead, though, they're going to turn their attention towards this solo lane side. And talking about it just a moment, we see Calvìn go for an invade of their own. We've seen a couple of plays like this before. Be successful,
Wow.
thanks to the chains, which is insane. That was like 74 damage. Shout out to Calvìn on that. The Duduin here, oh, he's maxing them too. Good, I like to see that. Duduin here, usually when we see these solo laners, it's what we're expecting from OgiBre. It's the high sustain, talent trinket start, or tiny trinket start, plus then the Vamp Shroud. But tier 1 uncommon staff and bombers? What's going on there?
Ooh-wee. Ooh-wee. I was hoping you wouldn't notice, because I've got no answer. Is it good?
Warlock staff solo?
I mean, late game, you know, at level 20, when that's like a Bumba's Hammer probably, it's going to be pretty cool. He's going to have so much more CDR, and that's where some of the sustain is going to come from. If you're going Warlock staff, you're going to have a certain degree of tankiness just by having high HP. He's not going to be as tanky as OgiBre, because OgiBre's going to heal on every single engagement. He's not going to have as much impact in the team fight, because OgiBre's got team-wide AoE CC. Man, he's not going to do as much damage either. Hold on.
Yeah.
I'm going to figure it
All
out.
these
Give me a
recipes.
second. Blur,
All right, no.
give me a second.
Yeah,
I'll figure it out.
I got it.
These
All
guys,
you.
they don't just do things, Blur, okay? There's always a method to the madness.
That's true.
No, I don't have it.
I'll tell you what, I'll cast this little bit of a moment here. Ares ulted, forced some beads, but it isn't much. But that gravity surge is big here. Pikarino looking for the ultimate. They'll hit Chaac, but the CC immunity is there. Bero is just running for their lives from FrenchEmperor. Doesn't even channel the ult damage. Instead, just looking to full disengage. Yomi Tanukis get themselves a bit of pressure here. 3 ultimates used for 3 ultimates in response. But that was all Yomi Tanukis here.
Yeah,
Anyway,
Yomi
back to the
Tanuki's so good.
Poseidon.
No,
They
don't
built
make me do
Warlock
it.
stuff.
Don't make me do it. Look, it's it used to be good, you know, and maybe it's been a little while since Duduin's hopped on the website. Oh, there it is. There you go.
There we
That's
go.
why.
It works. It works. Early
Let me
rotation.
pose a question to you, Blur.
Okay.
Do you think the itemization had anything to do with that kill?
I mean, technically it would have, because if he'd built no items, he wouldn't have killed them
You
at
got
all.
me.
So
You got me.
to some extent, yes. To the extent of could they have killed if that was a Pythax piece? They probably would have killed anyway. So, I mean, hey, it's 5 more stacks, and that's a very early rotation out of solo. So I'm happy to see that.
Is he maxing Tidal Surge as well? He is.
He is.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's PvP Poseidon, okay? He wants the Kraken into one combo to one-shot, and I guess it just will. But if it was a one-shot build, like, why not just, like, you know, a mid lane build? Why not, like, book a Thoth in that slot?
I feel like this is Duduin trying to play Poseidon jungle, and the OtherTheAnother was just like, no, I don't want to play that. I want you to play it in solo. So they're reluctantly doing it. But book a Thoth, as we saw there, Pikarino.
Oh, he's going tank
Picking that
stats after. Okay, he's going for, like, standardized
Okay, he is
tank
doing
a tank build. This is like the OG Hades build almost.
True, but there's no sustain for it as well. Whether or not
Yeah,
it gets
Hades built Mancross.
punished. Yeah, that's true. I mean, Hades, you could build pretty much anything and you just win the lane. So it's hard to say that it was a build for Hades. Now 6 minutes in, first blood goes to the Olympus Bolts, but they're the ones behind on farm. Yomi Tanuki's doing a fairly decent job here. FrenchEmperor looking for Duduin. There's the blink. They'll miss the knockup, but they'll immune the ultimate very nicely with the feather step there. Beads will buy you a little bit of time, but the taunt is good, and OgiBre clears up that mess in the solo lane. Yep, that's a Poseidon solo.
In fairness to Duduin, because we've been talking about him so much, I'm not sure that Pythax piece saves him from that fight either. I mean, maybe it helps if he throws it at the wave. So just fine. He'll be just okay. He'll scale well into the late game, and if he doesn't take too many poke fights in lane, he'll be all right. OtherTheAnother, nice ultimate there, pulled back in, but I'm not thinking there's a whole lot more to this engagement from here, unless FrenchEmperor can get involved. Pikarino also started his own rotation, but the disengage from the Olympus Bolts would have swayed any further chase from Yomi Tanuki, is what I would have said, but they're still hovering nearby.
Well, there's a gold buff up, and with these 4 members around, this has been a lot of focus. Yomi Tanukis have put pressure out this side of the map all of last game as well. But Pikarino being here and the Scylla not is going to be a problem. Serpent the 9 wins, splits the uprights. It does drive everyone away. Mounted archery and Heavenly Banner make that a tombstone, if nothing more. Lode forced back to base the long way in this fight here. Olympus Bolts now. I mean, after the start that they got off to, it felt like they were at least going to try and fight a little bit more. But Yomi Tanuki's just answered back so well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the lead established in the jungle belongs to Yomi Tanuki. Awilix is just a lot more threatening at this point of the game. We've seen, what, 4 ultimates from OtherTheAnother now, and once CC immuned by StreakUp, another time just feather stepped by FrenchEmperor. I believe we saw OgiBre jump over another one. It's just, Chaac ultimate is a very, very long telegraph and is very easy to avoid. If it hits, it does good damage, and the silence, of course, is going to be so disruptive in the engagement, but it just does not often hit the guy you want it to. You'll hit Calvìn frequently, and if Calvìn doesn't have ultimate, he'll be silenced, but it's kind of a tank Ares.
Oh, no. Yeah. I mean, if he's not channeling flames or trying to chain up, then he's just bolstered defense, and that doesn't go down if you silence someone, so...
Love CCR.
Just slap the shield, and that's about it. So, like you said, the CCR as well, that'll help out as well. I suppose the only thing that it does mean is OtherTheAnother gets a lot of damage immunity when channeling the ult. So if Pikarino hits another Serpent and the 9 wins, it's not going to do as much damage. There's a plus side here for it.
Yeah, there are some pluses. There certainly are. You know, this is a debate casters have been having for a very long time, Blair. You know, even before we were casting, it was Dry Bear and F dot or Aggro and F dot arguing about whether or not Chungle was actually very good. We'll see if OtherTheAnother can settle it.
Yeah. I'll have to find out. As OtherTheAnother tries to get aggressive in. Calvin loses about as much HP as OtherTheAnother, but there's the blink forward. Both ults for it. And a monster comes down just to slap Calvin. So it wasn't for free, but 2-for-1 ults for a blink? That feels pretty good if I'm Yomi Tanuki's.
Yeah, can they do anything with that pressure, though? Haven't taken away those teamfight ultimates. Taking a fight would be a good place to start it. Dutsher force use the beads.
And even so, just about gets away. Featherstep closes the gap.
Goodness.
Dutsher's HP. I said it last game on the Cabrakan. He paid for the full health bar. He's going to use the whole thing. Did it just again there, but Yomi Tanuki's, I love that. They go for the fight, get some good pressure, and then they say, let's do it again, get some more pressure, and they'll try for a third time here, all around towards Gold Fury. They're trying to bait Olympus Bolts as if they're doing gold. They're not able to pull it just yet, especially when they know StreakUp's not there.
Yeah, StreakUp, major part of that DPS has been kept in lane by Lode there, but I like the idea as well. Hide around the corner, someone's going to have to face check it. If chains connect, they're not walking out of the situation, and with ultimate off BeroTheBeast and OtherTheAnother still, would have been a good engagement to take. So nice idea from Yomi Tanuki. I think they just show themselves a little bit too early. Had they hit in the Gold Fury pit itself, I believe Olympus Bolts likely would have checked it. We even saw OtherTheAnother kind of set up, throws out his axe, says, all right, I'm going to turn the corner, I'm going to immediately teleport away. But if chain's there, would have caught him and likely would have resulted in a kill, or at least the beads burned off of the Chaac. Speaking of, beads on Chaac, that's not something you exactly see super often. Generally, it's blink in that first slot to make his incredibly difficult to land ultimate a little bit easier to land. Instead, defense on the mind. Wants some of that survivability. Keep my eyes on him, though. Seems to me the Olympus Bolts want to fight with numbers. They've been 3-stacked for the last 2 minutes towards the center of the map. Haven't exactly been given over an opportunity to take that engagement, though. Red buff invade attempted and prevented by the French Emperor.
Now, we're in this lull moment here. I know you hand it back to me, and I'm like, okay, let's see what's going on the map. Nothing.
Yep.
So I guess I gotta now ask a question. Outside of
Feel free.
Duduin, I mean, Duduin's finished the build. We saw the first rotation here, but we haven't seen anything else. What's been hampering Duduin, like, from rotating out early? Is it just OgiBre being annoying?
Well, there's not really a whole lot of reason for Duduin to leave lane, right? He could. And he is faster, so could get involved in that fight a bit earlier, but there haven't been fights on the right side of the jungle. And if a solo laner leaves and goes all the way over towards left and comes up empty, he'd just fall behind so significantly that I think it'd be near impossible to make that comeback in the 1v1. Dutsher pulled back in, and this one should do it.
It should very well. They try to get away with the Riptide, but Emperor found the perfect answer to that.
Dash forward.
It's been for a while here. Dash aggressively? You can't afford to do that, Aegis! What is going on here, Bero? No way Bero's getting away from this. Calvin wants this kill, but unfortunately the tower dissuades them, as does OtherTheAnother. I like the attempted re-engage there, but it just does not work out. Calvin gets OtherTheAnother kill instead. Scylla will land a crush and a Sikkim, but it's not too much right now. Pikarino's actually tanking this tower and has to Aegis it. Oh boy, what a matchup we're seeing right now. What a game.
Yeah, Bero goes absolutely crazy with the dash forward and the whiff entire kit true combo. Gets punished for it in that he loses his jungler's life. Classic mid laner. Makes a mistake. Jungler has to pay for it. My heart goes out to OtherTheAnother, but he also chose to lock that Chaac himself. Yomi Tanuki win out on the engagement immediately afterward. To break it fully, it's Dutsher pulled in by Gravity Surge, and then from there, Olympus Bolts, I suppose, just feel threatened enough that they feel like they have to take the engagement, and that's where BeroTheBeast has his crazy moment himself. Afterward, Yomi Tanuki grabbed the first neutral objective as well and solidify their lead for the first time here in Game 2. And it's significant, considering we're only 13 minutes in. I mean, experience certainly the more significant of the two. I mean, we're talking about a level and a half, 2 levels individually here or there. Specifically Calvin, sitting at level 11. As opposed to Dutch on the other side, who's hovering that level 9 mark. Getting access to that second relic for this Ares is just going to be so important.
It is. Also as well, I think the big thing for me, Bero just wanted to try and finish off that Bountiful Bow recipe. They've still not got it fully stacked yet. And that's the second phase, which is just do damage. So really need to try and finish off that one.
That's why he dashed forward, Blur. You got it. Okay.
Yay! So that's at least that start. Maybe that's why Dutsher went in as well in that situation without the beads, or try to get away, I guess. They were pulled back in with Ares, so I'll scratch that. But they've still not got the Sturdy Stew finished up as well. But Calvin, though, opting for the Bountiful Bow as well, getting that CDR online just a little bit more. Coupled in with the extra bit of CDR from the Shoguns. It'll work out nicely for them.
Yeah, synergizes well for Calvin. Already has so much damage just by nature of his passive, getting additional damage from those aura items, Shoguns, and Thebes. So having the additional CDR from Bao means that when his abilities come back up, they're actually doing something. Pikarino isolated Yemoja and Chaac stack ultimates. It's working.
Is it working? Because the health bar's still there, and the rest of the team is eventually going to show up. Duduin beelines towards the backside, but Dutsher ends up falling for TheFrenchEmperor. Now the Living Nightmare from Lode is there, but TheFrenchEmperor is on a tear with a double kill. Pulled back in is Duduin, and they are not winning this fight. StreakUp's rotation gets themselves a double-double, meaning that the OtherTheAnother is the only surviving member, just trying to clear out waves. And this is very early, but with all these members here and no one to stop them, why not get a Fire Giant 15.5 minutes in?
I mean, does TheFrenchEmperor live though? Yeah, he's fine. Pythags P's giving over some lifesteal to him. He's going to be just okay. OtherTheAnother could stop it. OtherTheAnother, they will not be stopping it. And Yomi Tanuki, off the back of Olympus Bolts getting aggressive, Dutsher and OtherTheAnother finally seeing an opportunity to team up together. Voltron up to take out Pikarino. Do exactly that, but at the cost of just about their entire team, as well as the Pyromancer and the Fire Giant and the right tier 1 tower, and potentially any thread or semblance of a threat of control on this game. Yomi Tanuki now entirely in the driver's seat. I would argue comfortable, buckled in perhaps. They've got the little fuzzy steering wheel cover, you know, dice in the rear view. They're doing just fine.
Yeah, cruising right along down Main Street. They find themselves. I think that's the Muppets song anyway. I know it's cruising right along, but for the rest of it here, Yomi Tanuki's. It's now just about the destination. Where do they want to look? The entire map is their oyster. They've already taken down 2 tier 1 towers. They've just got mid to look at. They've got a runic bomb in pocket as well. But the question that asks now is, what do Olympus Bolts try and hold here? Because we've seen now how much they have to dump in for a single kill on Pikarino.
Yep.
And how much they gave up for it. They can't take another fight like that, or they'll just lose the game outright. But what is their game plan?
Well, looking at their draft, their base defense is not exactly phenomenal. I'd argue perhaps poor. So, if anything, it's probably an all-in engagement once Yomi Tanuki commit to a tower, which is, I know you say it's not exactly what they want to do, but I think it's really all they can do with this draft. Unfortunately for the Olympus Bolts, Yomi Tanuki have proven all throughout game number 1, and now doing so here again in game 2, that they will not be haphazardly walking into a tower, tier 1, tier 2, or otherwise. So instead, fall back, pick up the gold free, line their pockets, start putting some pressure on map, and maybe could knock down this tier 2 on left as the rest of the Olympus Bolts scrounge for farm on the right-hand side. Tier 2, easy. Nobody here from the Olympus Bolts to prevent this one. Tier 2 in mid, that'll take a little bit longer. Minion wave going to take a while to get there. Or perhaps they pressure this Phoenix just to force the back. Back already channeled. Olympus Bolts praying, please, please walk into my Phoenix so we can go for the all-in engagement. And it doesn't happen. Yomi Tanuki, they bide their time.
That's a lot of hope, SMITE. Man, I really hope this enemy team makes a misplay. I really hope they let us get a good fight. Well, let's see whether or not the fight they do end up with is good for them. Kraken hits Calvin, and Calvin has tanked up that tower for far too long. So I guess when you hope for something like that, sometimes it will happen. Spirit of the Nine wins.
Oh, it hit.
Does end up catching OtherTheAnother on the tail end of it. And that kind of very quickly shut up the Yomi Tanukis. They wanted that fight. That was blink engagement coming through, but River's Rebuke sealed off too much. And now Yomi Tanukis are kind of left a little dumbfounded.
Yeah, I'm seeing 5 ultimates used to knock down Calvin, who is going to respawn 3 levels ahead. And stronger now, having upgraded his starter, as well as some of his relics. So, fair play to the Olympus Bolts, taking out the one member that they could. Does take them a lot of their resources, buys them a few more seconds. I don't think we would have seen Yomi Tanuki, even had they knocked down the tier 2 in mid, continue their siege much further. So, because it's a zero-sum game on those towers, the Olympus Bolts defending the tier 2 do get to maintain the status quo so far as Golden's experience is concerned, but I'm not thinking it's changed the pace of game too much here. 8,000 some odd gold means that Yomi Tanuki are going to be heavily advantaged around this Pyromancer. No fight to be had for this one. We'll put another Runic Bomb in play. Already 1 for Yomi Tanuki. Make that 2 now. So that's 2,000 true damage on Fire Giant once it respawns in a minute, or perhaps they hold on to it, and I think likely that they do, just to knock down some of these Phoenixes. I like this, though. Move fast.
Bero, you can't dash away when there's an Awilix in front of you. That's going to cost you a pick. And that's the tier 2 tower as well. Gone now for the Yomi Tanukis to go ahead and start pushing a little further forward. OgiBre will dash in aggressively, look to the OtherTheAnother, whose health bar is just absolutely decimated, chained in flames. Pikarino cleans that one up. Mid Phoenix as well as the avalanche of Yomi Tanukis continues to push forward. The dash in load. Oh, you hate to see it happen.
Rinse,
but as
repeat.
the famous caster once said, it's fun to punch down.
Bro, Yomi Tanuki, you're doing it again. Blur. 3 dead. Only 2 standing.
Could have ended.
Both tanks still standing.
shots.
We just walk out. Oh, they got Duduin, though.
They did. He ain't got beads either. See, it's just stat pattern right now.
Right.
It's a big 3-man Kraken.
Massive.
He did something.
He sure did. And you know, if I'm Duduin right now, I'm looking at the HP bars like, guys, I hit a 3-man Kraken. You couldn't have done any damage before that? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
Everybody on the Olympus Bolts have wounds on their back, the shame of a warrior, to be sure, as they try and retreat from the full brunt of force that was Yomi Tanuki, catching out first BeroTheBeast, then OtherTheAnother, now Duduin as well. Simple enough, I suppose. Put Fire Giant on all 5 once again. 21-minute mark, second Fire Giant, by the way. How many towers still standing? 1 tier 2 on right? Yeah, knock that down. That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, if you're looking at the entire map, there's 5, but you can't take your own tier 1 towers. That'd be an interesting idea, though. You just cash in your towers, be like, hey, can we get 500 gold for this? Maybe your ADC is like, hey, can I trade my tier 1 for a 500 pot late game? Might be a fun idea. Put that one down for season 12.
Okay. Yeah, I'll use my high-res connections, pass that along. You want me to
Yeah.
associate your name with that suggestion, or do you think maybe we keep anonymous?
I mean, you can do. I've got a couple of those. I've always wanted Osiris to be able to regain passive stacks when he throws out more abilities to keep that going some more, like the Poseidon, and we see how good Poseidon is now. So maybe that would be a good way to make.
Yeah,
the
Poseidon's
Osiris
looking
as OP as
real
he should
good
be.
right now. You're right, Blur.
Okay, all right. He's 2, 3, and 1. He's the highest level on the team outside of the jungler, who's been stripping away all the farm. I got to blame that. And Duduin's been split pushing as best they can to keep the fight going. I don't know what more you want to say to me. There's a toxic blade being built. You're the analyst. You explain that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes his auto attacks a little bit more threatening. OgiBre jumps in. BeroTheBeast shows a good deal of respect. Dashes himself out as the left side bird is knocked down. Mid Phoenix a good ways off respawn. And Yomi Tanuki on a tear across the map. We'll go ahead and put their aggression into a tier 2 next. It's not an enhanced Fire Giant, so backdoor protections in play. Maybe a door gank here, but nobody going to walk through. Instead, it's OtherTheAnother, and I don't know what hit him.
Walk around? What? Oh, no. Guys, you know that thing you do where you buy those wards and you place them at points so you can see where the enemies are?
Yeah,
you can
wards,
do that
yeah.
over those little walls there. It's pretty useful for them, as Yomi Tanuki just say, we've had enough playing around here.
Oh, that's
Let's
gonna
finish
work.
this one off as best as we can. I'm a Monster hits TheFrenchEmperor, and it's good damage, but there's no follow-up, and that's been the tail of the tape for the entire game here. As Lodde once again trying to make it back to the fountain. Pikarino says, yeah, about that, you ain't doing that. Titan now under a bit of duress, but they're more interested in the kills on players. Bero knocked out of fountain, but Titan eventually succumbs. Almost a mercy killing there. 23 minutes in. Yomi Tanuki's make it look easy.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say make it look easy. That was easy for Yomi Tanuki.
Yeah.
I mean, there was maybe one speed bump at the very beginning, and then since then they had it on cruise control doing 55 and a 40. Like, it was not a difficult situation for them. Maybe some laws of conflict, right? The rules of war perhaps broken there. I'm not saying they're criminals of war, but, you know, they might have been doing war crimes. I mean, that's all I'm saying.
I mean, maybe. Who's to say? Who can really say that either way? I guess we'll have to go over to the desk to try and analyze that and answer your question. Are the Yomi Tanukis committing war crimes against the Olympus Bolts?
I don't know if I have an answer for that one, but they definitely won this 2-0. And it was really interesting, Chelly. Again, game one, we're saying, okay, maybe the Tanuki need to clean some things up if they want a better win or a stronger, a faster win. Maybe the Bolts need to clean things up if they want to keep this game in contention. One of those things did happen, but it was not the one for the Bolts, unfortunately. They get eliminated here, but the Tanuki look great.
Yeah, this was, I'm not going to say a night and day difference from game number one, but it was just as clean as it gets, really. The only way you're ending a game this quickly is if you are just absolutely dominating from essentially minute 1 to minute done. They found the composition. They did not let the Olympus Bolts get to late game where their comp really would have flourished. I think the Chaac was supposed to bridge that gap between, early to late games. They say, we got Chernobog, we got a Scylla, we got a Poseidon who wants Bumba's hammer. We can get to late game and we're going to win. And the Yomi Tanuki said, we are going to make sure that none of you touch level 20. Like, that is the idea. That is the breakneck pace that we are going to set. And, yeah, it ended up working out quite well from him. I was really impressed. Once again, I feel like every time I am on the desk for the Tanuki sets, I got to give praise to TheFrenchEmperor, but the Awilix was able to dictate the pace pretty easily, right? That's exactly what you're picking this character for early game dominance, and the Awilix dominated the early game.
And then what you really get, and like you said, it's easy to go to TheFrenchEmperor, but it really, I'm still floored and thrown away by StreakUp's consistency. I think is one great thing that this team has going for it. But, I mean, all of them, right, to an extent. But the front line, Calvìn plays incredibly well. OgiBre as well does a ton of setup. I mean, look, 9 assists for Calvìn, 11 assists for OgiBre. They are active in every single aspect of this game.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have 10 affected kills from StreakUp. You've got, 11 from both TheFrenchEmperor and Pikarino. So just presence on the map. And like you said, being able to set that pace and knowing that your team can follow it, right? Like, if you're the Awilix, you say, okay, cool, I'm going to be the trendsetter. I'm going to be the one that says this is how fast we're going. And every single one of you's got to keep up. And not only do they do it, they knock it out of the park, and they knock the Olympus Bolts out of the tournament. So they keep things going for themselves. And Trelly, most importantly, they showcase, again, as the number 4 seed, when they struggled a little bit getting to this point. I think it was really, really solid for them to be able to cinch this win, and more importantly, to do it 2-0, since they lost to the Olympus Bolts just a couple days ago, 2-1. Now, with this win, the Tanuki not only eliminate the Bolts, they also move forward with Hex Mambo to Group C. So that means we have 2 of our teams that are now, well, actually, I guess 3 if we go ahead and count Group B as well with the Wargs. 2 teams from Group A that are going to be filling out that final bracket, plus the Wargs, which is where the next set comes in. Scarabs and Titans is going to be able to find us that last team. And then rinse and repeat, right? 4 teams, best of 3s, double elim, top 2 get to go to the qualifiers, bottom 2 get knocked out. And slowly but surely, you're starting to see, I think, some of the strengths, right? The number 1 seed, the number 3 seed, the number 4 seed being there, showcasing the reason their consistency has gotten them that seeding in the first place.
Yep, and that's the benefit of a tournament like this. The Tanuki can take that loss that they had earlier on, make some corrections, change in stride, and then this set, I mean, game number 2 wasn't even close at that point, so I think showing that they can make those adaptations, maybe they can learn throughout the rest of the tournament, and going up against teams like Hex Mambo and the Wargs, you're going to have to make those adaptations. So excited to see what they can do in Group C.
Yeah, they shifted things up here, but like you mentioned, the competition only gets tougher for the Tanuki, for Hex Mambo, for the Wargs, for everybody who makes it to Group C. We still have one more team to find that's going to go there, one more team that's getting eliminated today. We'll find out who that's going to be right after this.